At the edge of a grand old castle, just beyond the iron gate where important people came and went, stood a little lantern. It wasn't spectacular, and its flame was small and a bit shaky. The glass was chipped, but the master of the castle insisted that it stay lit. Tradition, he'd say. Adds charm. It's our little guardian. But in truth, the lantern wasn't kept for charm, but because of a rumour the master had once heard that its flame repelled a certain kind of moth, the kind that would otherwise swarm his precious chandelier. A famous chandelier that guests came to be dazzled by, and they dropped names and clinked glasses beneath it and posed for portraits bathed in its glow. And so the lantern stayed, just outside. It was never invited in. It wasn't part of the grand castle. It was only endured because the master had a theory that the lantern's flame came from somewhere else, that it was connected to some larger, more influential fire far away, and it was a fire that he wanted his chandelier to be noticed by. And if keeping the little lantern lit got him closer to that, well then, old faithful lantern, bless it, let's keep it burning. The chandelier didn't like competition, but it adored association. So the lantern was allowed to glow outside, quietly. But one day, the master learned the truth. The lantern wasn't connected to anything. It had no secret pipeline to fame or fortune, no influence, no hidden ties to the grand bonfire he'd hoped to be noticed by. It was just a lantern. And just like that, the tone changed. The compliments stopped and the mild affection faded. The guests no longer gave it a second glance. And the master didn't bother to hide his true feelings. The lantern was no longer quaint to him. It was clutter. But he didn't possess the backbone to be honest. So indignation set in. But the lantern knew, because it had seen the air of dismissal behind the praise. And quietly, before anyone could dismiss it, it stepped down from the gate and gathered its belongings into a spotted handkerchief tied to a stick, and it went deep into the forest to think. It didn't make a scene or create a drama. It just left quietly. And when it was gone, something colder took its place. A blue artificial light, much more in keeping with the chandelier's superficial, grandiose image. And for a while, the castle gleamed. But then the moths came, and they came in their droves and were no longer held back by the quiet little flame at the gate. They flooded the entrance, infested the chandelier, hid in the curtains, and chewed through the corners of the sofas and the master's clothes hanging in the wardrobe. They weren't drawn to the light, but to the heat of the chandelier's arrogance, and eventually the castle dimmed. No one ever mentioned the lantern again. But far from the castle, deep in a wilder part of the woods, the lantern still flickered with a new warmth coming from its flame. A new peace of mind. It wasn't glamorous. It wasn't networked. But it was real and it was loved. The lantern had healed, and so now it only shone where it was appreciated. And for those who know what it's like to be tolerated until you're not, I dedicate this story to you.
Ginger fairy.